Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week, and if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe to join in the fun. We're keeping it cozy as I show you how to make this modern Batwing sweater. Always been a fan of Batwings, so I'm happy to bring more to the channel for you to enjoy. And if you enjoy the idea of more Batwing sweaters, consider clicking the bell to get subscribed so you never miss out. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now it's time to get on the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 3 yarn will work, but I used a total of 360 grams of yarn, and that's 1200 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 5 and 6mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us your favorite superhero. I like a lot, but my favorite has to be Batman. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 4 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, and double crochet. This tutorial is for size small, but you can adjust it for your size, and we explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting the sweater started, we're first going to grab our category 3 yarn and make a slip knot. Next, we're going to grab our 6mm hook and start off by making an even number chain that reaches from the top of our shoulder down to where we want the bottom of the sweater to be. I need mine to be just about 22.5 inches or 57 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain of 78. And now that we have our chain, we're going to work on our first row, which is a moss stitch row. So we're going to start by blocking off that last chain. We're going to start with one chain. That's going to count as our turning chain. And then we're going to do a second chain, and that's going to count as an actual chain. That's going to make more sense in a second. And from here, we're going to single crochet into the 4th stitch away from our hook. So let's count out together. There's 1, 2, 3, and then 4. Into that 4th chain, we're going to insert our hook with a single crochet. So insert, yarn over, pull through that loop. Should have 2 loops on our hook. From here, we're going to yarn over and pull through both of those loops, and that is going to form our first chain space, and that is that gap right there. We're going to make another one. So start with a chain, skip that next chain, and then into that next chain, we're going to insert with 1 single crochet. Now all together we should have 2 chain spaces. Let's do just one more. We're going to chain 1, skip the next chain, and then into the following, insert with a single crochet. So all together we should have 1, 2, 3 chain spaces. Now from here we're going to continue to chain 1, skip the next chain, and single crochet into the following, making our way all the way down to reach the end of the row. Alright, so now that our first moss stitch row is all finished up, our row number 2 is actually going to be another moss stitch row. So to get that started, we're going to do a chain 2. Now we're always going to start every moss stitch row off with a chain 2 and flip your work. And just like how the previous one started off with, that first chain counts as our turning chain, and then that second chain counts as a chain. And now from here, we're going to skip the first stitch, which is a single crochet from our previous row, and then single crochet into that next stitch, which is our chain space. So it's going to be pretty easy. We're going to insert our hook into that gap from our previous row with just 1 single crochet. And now that we have that, we have just formed our first chain space. Let's do this again. We're going to chain 1, skip the next stitch, and then into the next, which is our gap from our previous row, single crochet. All together we should have 1, 2 chain spaces. Let's do this one more time. Chain 1, skip the next stitch, into that chain space, single crochet. So for this row, just chain 1 and then single crochet into the chain space from our previous row, making our way all the way down. All right, so our row 2 is all finished up, and now we're going to get started on our row 3, which is going to be a half double crochet row. So this isn't going to have any increases or decreases. So to get started on our half double crochet row, we're going to chain 2 and flip our work. And we're just going to be putting 1 single crochet into every stitch and chain space. So start with a yarn over and insert your hook into the first stitch from our previous row, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3. That's my first half double crochet. And then my next stitch is this chain space. So yarn over into that next stitch, pull through, and pull through all 3. Now from here, we're going to continue to put 1 half double crochet into every stitch and chain space, making our way all the way down. So we just made our way all the way down to the end of our row number 3. Now our row 4 is going to be another half double crochet row with no increases and no decreases. So just to get that started, we're going to do a chain 2 and flip our work. From here, we're going to yarn over, insert your hook into that first stitch with a half double crochet, and continue to put 1 half double crochet until we reach the end of the row, and then I'll meet you guys back. All right, so our first 4 rows are all finished up. Altogether, we should have 1 moss stitch row, a second moss stitch row, and then 2 half double crochet rows. And what we're working on right now is the shoulder, and we want to have just a little bit of a shoulder portion. So I'm just going to keep repeating these 4 rows. So just to get the next moss row started off with you guys, we're going to start with a chain 1, that counts as our turning chain, a second chain that's going to count as a chain, and flip our work. Now to do this first moss stitch row, we're going to skip that first stitch, then single crochet into the next, forming our first chain space. Let's do that again. Chain 1, skip 1 stitch, and single crochet into the next. And we're going to keep doing this until we reach the end of the row. I'm now at the end of my row 5, which was a moss stitch row, and the second row in a row sequence is going to be another moss stitch row. So just to get that started again, we're going to chain 1, counts as a turning chain. Chain 2 will count as a chain and flip our work. And from here, we're going to single crochet into every chain space with a chain 1 in between. So start by finding the first chain space from our previous row and insert with 1 single crochet. And this forms our first chain space. Let's do that again. Chain 1 into that next chain space, single crochet. And we're going to continue to do this until we reach the end of the row. And to finish up this row sequence, we're going to do 2 half double crochet rows after that. And from here, all we're going to do is keep repeating these 4 rows with no increases and no decreases until we get the shoulder portion that we like. Now I'm going to be placing my first row about 2 inches past the tip of my shoulder, and then I'm going to continue on with this 4 row sequence until this is about 1 inch on top of my shoulder. And I'll meet you guys back right after our second half double crochet row. Alright, so I am back with my shoulder portion all finished up. I have a total of 16 rows, and the width is just about 5 inches or 13 centimeters, and now we can get started on the next scoop. So we're all going to start by inserting our stitch marker into the even numbered stitch from the top where we want our neck hole to start. So I've inserted mine into the 10th stitch from the top, and that's just about 2.5 inches or 6 centimeters. And from here, we're just going to get started on our next moss stitch row, making our way all the way up until we reach our stitch marker. So I've made my way all the way up with our moss stitch row until we reached our stitch marker. Now from here, all we're going to do is keep repeating our same 4 row sequence that we have been doing until this can work across our chest, stopping about 1 inch before the tip of our other shoulder. So just to get this next row started off with you guys, we're going to do a chain 2 because it is going to be our second moss stitch row. Flip your work and then put 1 single crochet into every chain space with a chain in between, making our way all the way down. After this row, we are going to do 2 half double crochet rows and then repeat. I'll meet you guys back once we reach the other side, right after our first moss stitch row. Alright, so I am back with my body portion. I now have a total of 41 rows and my width is just about 13.5 inches or 34 centimeters. And now from here, we're going to start working on the second shoulder portion. Now this other shoulder portion that we have is going to mirror the first one because when we seam the shoulders together, we want to make sure that all of the rows line up. So we should have all ended right after our first moss stitch row, and we did that because we wanted to end along the top. And from here, we're going to make the same amount of chains as stitches that we skipped on this side. So if you guys have my numbers, I skipped a total of 10 stitches. So over here, I'm going to make a chain of 10. And now that we have our chain, we're just going to block off that last chain, do a chain 2, that doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain, and then we're going to half double crochet all the way down because the last row that we have for this shoulder portion was a half double crochet. So just to get this first one started off with you guys, we're going to yarn over, insert your hook into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook, with a half double crochet, and then all we're going to do from here is put one half double crochet into every chain, one half double crochet into every stitch, and then just repeat our pattern sequence. So it's going to be 2 half double crochet rows, 2 moss stitch rows, and then repeat for the same amount of shoulder rows as we have on this side. Once we have all this finished up, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I will meet you guys back. So I am back and I have just finished up the entirety of my front panel. I finished up the shoulder portion, making sure that I had the same amount of rows as my other shoulder portion. I did a chain up of 1 and cut, and I am all finished, and now we can get started on the back panel. So how that's going to work is we're going to start by making the same amount of chains that we made when we started off our shoulder portion. And then from there, we're just going to keep repeating our 2 moss stitch row and 2 half double crochet row with no increases and no decreases for the same amount of rows as our first shoulder portion, and then also our next scoop. I want to meet you guys back once we reach this last row that we have right here, just to remind you guys that we are going to continue on the second half, starting with a half double crochet, and that doesn't matter what row we land on for the last neckline row, just like how we did the front panel. So go ahead and get this first half all finished up, and then I will meet you guys back. All right, so I'm finished up with most of my back panel. I did end on the last row that we had right before we get started on the second shoulder portion. I just wanted to meet you guys back to remind you guys that no matter what our previous row was, we're going to start with our half double crochet and then just work our way out with 2 half double crochet, 2 moss stitch rows, just for the remaining amount of rows that we have. And we're doing it that way so that when we seam everything together, our rows can be aligned. So go ahead and finish up our back panel, again with no increases and no decreases, and I'll meet you guys back once that's all finished up. All right, so I am back with the entirety of my back panel. I have the same amount of rows as my front panel, and I did do a chain up of 1 and cut. Now once we have all this finished up, we can seam the front panel to the back panel, starting with our shoulder. So what we're going to do is lay our front panel on top of our back panel, and we're going to start by inserting our hook into the corner stitch of the front and the corner stitch of the back panel. From here, we are going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through everything, and then from here, we're going to do a chain up of 1 to secure, and we're going to be putting 1 single crochet into every side moss stitch row, and then 2 single crochet into every side half double crochet row, making sure we're working into both the front and the back panel at the same time until we don't have any more front panel stitches left to work into. So let's do the first few. So the first side row that we should all have is a moss stitch row. This is mine right here, so go ahead and find that top loop for the front panel and insert your hook. And then we're going to find the same top loop within the back panel right over here. Insert your hook. And now we're going to single crochet. Now there's our first side moss stitch done. Into the next, we're going to be inserting with 1 single crochet again. So find that top loop into the front panel, insert your hook, and then find that top loop into the back panel as well. Insert your hook, and then single crochet. Now working into the side half double, like I said, we're going to be putting 2 single crochets into each of those. Start by finding that first side half double crochet into the front panel and insert your hook into there. And then find that same side half double crochet into the back panel, and then insert your hook into there. And from here, we're going to do 1 single crochet, and we're going to be doing 1 more into the same side loop. So into that same one, into the front panel, insert your hook, and then into the same one, into the back panel, insert your hook. Now this should be a little bit easier since the rows are already gathered for us, and all we're going to do is single crochet them together. Now we have 1 more side half double crochet left to do, and then it's going to be a repeat. So just to do the next one together, we're going to find that top loop into the front panel, find the top loop into the back panel, and then single crochet. And then we're going to be doing one more into the same side half double. So into the front panel and also into the back panel, and then single crochet. And from here, we're going to keep doing this until we don't have any more side rows left to work into the front panel. Do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat everything that we just did here on the other side. All right, so I am back and I have just finished up seaming up both of my shoulders, and now we can get started on the side seam. So the first thing that we are going to want to do is insert our stitch marker into any stitch, making sure that's an even numbered stitch from the top where we want our sleeve to be. Now I want mine to be a pretty decent sized batwing, so I've inserted my stitch marker into the 42nd stitch from the top, and this is right about where my waist is. So if you guys want your batwing to be bigger, go ahead and insert your stitch marker lower, or if you guys want it to be a little bit smaller, a little bit higher. But once we have that, we are going to make sure that our work is still flipped wrong side out, meaning that the seam is still faced outwards. And we're going to start by inserting a hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. I'm going to insert my yarn onto my hook, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure, and from here we're just going to be putting 1 single crochet into every stitch, making our way all the way up until we reach our stitch marker. So just to do the first one, we're going to find that first stitch into the front panel, which should be that chain space into the front panel. Now we're going to find that same chain space into the back panel, insert my hook into there with a single crochet. Finding that next available stitch that we have, it should be a single crochet, so go ahead and insert your hook into that stitch, and then find that same single crochet into the back panel, and then we're going to insert our hook into there with another single crochet. And we're just going to keep doing this, making our way all the way up until we reach the stitch marker, and then do a chain up of 1 and cut. Alright, so now that everything is all seamed up, we can now get started on the sleeve. So the first thing we're going to want to do for the sleeve is make sure that our work is flipped right side out, meaning all of our seams are on the inside. And we're going to start by inserting our hook into the stitch that's nearest to our side seam. So I'm going to insert my hook into there, insert my yarn onto my hook, and pull through. Now from here, we're going to do a chain 2 just to get the height. That doesn't count as a stitch. And we're going to start with our half double crochet row, and we're going to get started with our decreases right away. So we're going to start and end all of our half double crochet rows with a decrease. So let's get that started. So to do our decrease, we're going to yarn over, and we're going to insert our hook into that first stitch, yarn over, and pull through. Now also insert your hook into that next stitch, yarn over, pull through. We should have 4 loops on our hook. So from here, all we're going to do is just yarn over and pull through all 4 of those loops. Now that is our decrease. And then from here, just put 1 half double crochet into every stitch, making our way all the way up and around until we have just 2 stitches left so that we can do another decrease. Alright, so I have just made my way all the way around with my half double crochet row. I have left my last 2 stitches so that we can do a decrease with each other once more for this row. So from here, all we're going to do is yarn over, and then insert your hook into that second to last stitch, yarn over, and pull through. Now also insert your hook into that last stitch, yarn over, pull through. Should have 4 loops on our hook, so yarn over, and pull through all 4 of those loops. And now to close off every half double crochet row, we're going to start by counting up the first 2 chains that we made when we started off this row. So here's 1, there's 2. Into that second chain, we're going to insert our hook into there, yarn over, and pull through everything with a slip stitch to close it off. And now that our first row is all closed off, we are going to continue on with the same row sequence that we did for the body. So we're going to be doing another half double crochet row. But into the half double crochet rows, we are always going to decrease into the first 2 and last 2 stitches. So just like how we did the previous row, I'm going to get started with this one with you guys as well. We're going to start with a chain 2 and flip our work. So to get started with this decrease, we're going to yarn over, insert your hook into that first stitch, yarn over, pull through. Also insert your hook into that next stitch, yarn over, pull through, and when we have 4 loops on our hook, just yarn over, pull through all 4, And then from here, put 1/2 double crochet into every stitch until we have 2 left so that we can decrease again. All right, so I've just made my way all the way down with my second half double crochet row. We have left the last 2 stitches, and now we're going to decrease together. So just like before, we're going to yarn over. We're going to insert our hook into that second to last stitch, pull through, and then also into that last stitch and pull through. Should have 4 loops on our hook now, so just yarn over, pull through all 4, and then to close off this row, we're going to count up 1, 2 chains, slip stitch into that second chain. And then from here, we're going to do our moss stitch rows with no increases and no decreases. So start with a chain 2 and flip your work. And the moss stitch rows are going to be done exactly the same way that we did the entirety of the piece so far. So what we're going to do after our chain 2 is skip that first stitch, into the next stitch, single crochet, forming our first chain space, chain 1, skip a stitch, and then single crochet. We're going to maintain doing this, making our way all the way around for this row. I'll show you guys how to start the next row, and then it's just going to be a 4-row repeat until we're ready for our cuff. All right, so we have just made our way all the way around with our moss stitch row. We're going to close off this row and get the next row started off with each other. So now that we've made our way all the way down, what we're going to do is just slip stitch into that chain space that we made. We first started off this row, and then we have 1 more moss stitch row to do. So remember to chain 2, flip your work, and then we're going to single crochet into every chain space with a chain in between. So just to do the first one, we're going to be skipping that first stitch, which is a single crochet, then into the following, which is our chain space, single crochet into there, chain 1, into that next chain space, single crochet. And we're going to keep doing this, making our way all the way around, making sure that we slip stitch into that chain space and then flip our work. Now we're going to keep repeating these 4 rows. So 2 half double crochet rows, making sure that we decrease into the first 2 and into the last 2 stitches, and then 2 moss stitch rows. And we're going to keep repeating these 4 rows until we're ready for our cuff, and I will meet you guys back so we can get that started. All right, so I am back with the entirety of my sleeve. I have a total of 40 rows, and my length is just about 12.5 inches or 32 centimeters, and now we can get started on the cuff. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is switch out to our 5mm hook, do a chain 1, and we're all going to start by doing a single crochet row, but we're going to be alternating between a single crochet and then a decrease of 2 single crochet because we need this to cinch. So getting started, we're going to insert our hook into that first available stitch that we have with just 1 single crochet. Now into the next 2 stitches, which is a chain space and a stitch for me, I'm going to insert my hook, yarn over, pull through, and then also into that next stitch, yarn over and pull through. Now that we have 3 loops on our hook, all we're going to do is yarn over and pull through all 3. That's how we do a decrease of 2, and we're just going to keep alternating between those 2, so let's just do 1 more set. My next stitch that I have is this chain space, so I will be inserting my hook into that next stitch with just 1 single crochet, and then into my next 2, we're going to be doing a decrease of 2. So into that next stitch, which is a single crochet stitch, we're going to yarn over, pull through, and then into that next stitch, which is a chain space, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, and pull through all 3. And we're going to continue to do this, making our way all the way around, slip stitch into that chain space, and then I'll meet you guys back. So my single crochet row for my cuff is all finished up. And from here, after we did a slip stitch into that chain space, we're going to make a chain the length that we want our cuff to be. Now I want mine to be a little bit longer, just about 4.5 inches or 11 centimeters. So I'm going to start by making a chain of 25. And now that we have our chain, we are going to block off that last chain and do a chain 1. Now that doesn't count as a stitch, that's just our turning chain. And then into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. So bring our hook down, and into that chain, I'm going to insert my hook, yarn over, and pull through both loops on my hook. And a really quick tip that I have for you guys is when we finish our stitch, make sure that we're not tugging on our working yarn, otherwise the next row is going to be really hard to work into, so let's do the next one. Into that next chain, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through both loops on our hook, and then move on to the next one. Into that next chain, yarn over, pull through, next chain, yarn over, and pull through. Continue to do this until we reach the end of the row. Now that we've put one slip stitch into every chain, we are at the base and now we need to connect it. So what we're going to do is find that next stitch into the base. We're going to slip stitch into there to close off this first row. And then to get started on the next row, we're going to slip stitch up the following stitch into the base as well and flip our work. Now from here, we're going to be doing rows of back loop slip stitches so that we get a really nice ribbing and a cinch. So start by finding that first available stitches, back loop, yarn over, and pull through everything. Find that next stitches, back loop, yarn over, pull through everything. And that next stitch is back loop, yarn over, and pull through everything, all while remembering to not tug on our working yarn after we finish a stitch. I'll meet you guys back at the end of this row. And now that we're at the end of our row, to get started on the next row, since we're along the outside, we're going to do a chain one, flip our work, and then continue with rows of back loop slip stitches. Now from here, just put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch until we don't have any more stitches left, because I just want to remind you guys how we're going to connect it into the base once more. And now that we've made our way all the way back down to our base, we're going to connect it once more. So just like the previous row, we're going to find that next available stitch into the base, slip stitch into there, and then to work our way up to the next row, we're going to find that following stitch into the base, insert into there with a slip stitch, flip your work, and then make your way down, putting one back loop slip stitch into every stitch. And from here, we're just going to keep repeating these two rows until we don't have any more stitches left to work into the base, and then I'll meet you guys back so that we can seam everything together. So I've just made my way all the way around with my back loop slip stitch rows. I don't have any more stitches left to work into the base, and now we're just going to seam it together. And this seam is going to be an outside loop slip stitch seam, so we're going to want to make sure that our work is flipped right side out so that we can see the seam. So how we're going to get this started is start by finding that first available stitch that we have into the front panel, and we're going to insert our hook only in through that front loop. And once when our hook is in through there, we're going to find that first available stitch into the back panel and insert into that back loop. We should have 3 loops on our hook, so from here just yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops. That's our first one. Let's do the next. Find that first stitch from our front panel and insert only in through that front loop. And then find the first stitch into the back panel, only in through that back loop. Yarn over and pull through everything, and let's do one more. Into the next stitch into the front panel, insert into that front loop. Into the next stitch into the back panel and insert into that back loop. Yarn over and pull through everything. And we're going to continue to do this, making our way all the way down. And when we don't have any more stitches left, do a chain up 1 and cut, and then repeat everything that we did here on the other side. Alright, so now that both of our sleeves are all finished up, it's time to get started on the bottom band. So start by inserting your 6mm hook into any one of the stitches along the bottom. Insert your yarn onto your hook, pull through, and do a chain up 1 to secure. And to get started with our bottom band, we're going to first do a single crochet row along the bottom. So what we're going to do is just put 1 single crochet into every side row that we have. So start by finding your first side row. Mine is a side half double crochet row. If yours is a side moss stitch, that's completely fine. Just find that top loop, insert into there with a single crochet. Let's do that again. My next side row is this half double crochet row again. So I'm going to single crochet into there as well. And then my next 2 side rows are our 2 moss stitch rows. So insert my hook into there with 1. Insert my hook into that next side moss stitch row with another single. And continue to put 1 single crochet into every side row, making our way all the way around. So we've just single crocheted around the entirety of the bottom of our piece. And now what we're going to do is make a chain the length that we want our bottom band to be. So I want mine to be just about 3 inches or 8 centimeters. So I'm going to start by making a chain of 13. And now that we have our chain, we're going to block off that last chain, do a chain 1. That chain doesn't count as a stitch, that's just our turning chain. And into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, insert with a slip stitch. So I'm going to insert my hook, yarn over, and pull through everything. So pretty much the same way that we did the cuff. Let's do just one more. Into that next chain, insert your hook, yarn over, and pull through everything. And continue to put one slip stitch into every chain. And now that I've put one slip stitch into every chain, we're going to slip stitch it into the base. This is pretty much going to be a repeat of a cuff, so let's just do this really quickly. So find that next available stitch into the base, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through everything. And to work our way up to the next row, which is another back loop slip stitch row, slip stitch into that next stitch into the base, flip your work, and then put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch. And we're just going to keep repeating these 2 rows and connecting it into the base the same way that we just did until we don't have any more stitches left. And I'll meet you guys back to show you how we're going to seam this together. So I have just made my way all the way around with my back loop slip stitch rows. I don't have any more stitches left to work into, so now all we're going to do is seam it together, and this is going to be the same seam that we did with the cuff. So an outside loop slip stitch seam. So we just want to make sure that our work is still flipped right side out. We are going to yarn over, pull through everything, and since we already know how to do this, we're just going to do the first one together. So start by finding that first available stitch and insert your hook into the front panel, and then find that next stitch that we have into the back panel, then insert into that back loop. Should have 3 loops on our hook, so yarn over and pull through all 3. And we're going to continue to do this until we don't have any more stitches left, and then do a chain up of 1 and cut. Our bottom band is all seamed up, and what we're going to do next is our collar. So we're going to start by inserting our 6mm hook into any one of the side rows that we have along the back panel, and we're just going to single crochet all the way around. So insert your yarn onto your hook, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure, and from here we're just going to put 1 single crochet into every side row using a medium to loose grip. So let's do the first one. This is my first side row right here. It is a half double crochet, but if yours is a moss stitch, that's fine. Just find that top loop, insert your hook into there with 1 single crochet, making sure to not tug too tightly. Let's find the next row. My next row is this moss stitch row. So I'm going to insert my hook into there with a single, and then into that following moss stitch side row with another single. Go ahead and keep doing this, making our way all the way around. Slip stitch into that chain 1 space that we just made for ourselves, and then I'll meet you guys back. So I am back, and my single crochet row is all finished up, and now we're going to do a half double crochet row with no increases and no decreases. So all we're going to do right after we slip stitch is do a chain 2 and flip your work. And from here we're just going to put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. And when we don't have any more stitches left, slip stitch into that second chain that we made when we started off this row, and then I'll meet you guys back so we can do the ribbing for our collar. So right after my half double crochet row, we have just 1 more row left to do, and that's going to be a row of front and back post double crochets. So after we've slip stitched into that second chain, we're going to do a chain 2. Now from here, we're going to find the first half double crochet that we made from our previous row, and then we're going to do a front post double crochet. And how we're going to do that is start with a yarn over. Underneath that first half double crochet, we're going to bring our hook underneath the body and bring it through the other side. And from here, we're going to yarn over, pull through. At this point, we should have 3 loops on our hook, so just yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. There's our first front post double crochet, and then we're going to do a back post double crochet as well. So start with another yarn over. But from here, we're going to bring our hook underneath our work and then over the next half double crochet body. So bring your hook in between that gap, over that next half double crochet and through the other gap. We're going to yarn over and pull through. Should have 3 loops on our hook, so yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now all together we should have 1 set finished off, which is 1 front post double crochet and then 1 back post double crochet. So let's just do the next 2 sets with each other and let you guys finish off this row on your own. So start with the yarn over, and then next we're going to do another front post double crochet. So find the next available half double crochet from our previous row. We're going to bring our hook down and underneath the body of that half double crochet, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and then to do our back post, we are going to yarn over. Bring your hook underneath your work now, and then over that next half double crochet body, and through the other side. From here, we're going to yarn over, pull through, should have 2 loops, so we're going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now you should have a total of 2 sets, or that is 1 front post, 1 back post, 1 front post, and 1 back post. And I just want to do the next set with you guys quicker. So start with the yarn over, find that next half double, bring your hook underneath, pull through 2, pull through 2, and then a back post. So yarn over, bring your hook underneath your work and over that next half double crochet, and pull through 2, and pull through 2. And from here, we're just going to keep alternating between a front post double crochet and a back post double crochet until we don't have any more stitches left. And then from there, just slip stitch into that second chain that we made when we started off this row, do a chain up 1 and cut, and then I'll meet you guys back. All right, so I've just finished up my front and back post double crochet row, and I am all done. I did do a chain up 1 and cut, and the last thing I'm going to have to do is weave in all of our ends. Alrighty, y'all, and there you have it. Hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial. Check us out on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'll catch you on the next one. Bye!